If I or any of you in this room had the pain that Tiger Woods had, think of the excruciating pain that this man has been going through for a long time. And I personally think, in my opinion, if I'm right or wrong, I'm sorry, but he was trying to be a Navy SEAL scout for a while. And funny enough, I had a friend who was a Navy SEAL scout, and he said this long ago. He said, Tiger will really suffer in future with his back and his legs. I don't think he should drive a car. When you're taking that medicine, it's dangerous when you're driving a car.
Gary Player does not mince words. The 88-year-old legend has spent decades watching modern golf drift from the standards he built his career on, and when he calls out 6 players with habits he finds absolutely filthy, you realize this is not criticism. This is a warning. Player sees patterns most fans miss. He sees a sport sliding away from discipline, knowledge, and respect, one disgusting choice at a time. What he reveals about these 6 champions exposes a rot in professional golf nobody wants to admit exists. But before we dive into the names and the ugly truths, this is one of those videos where the story only gets more intense. If you are finding this as wild as we are, hit that hype button and let us know you are locked in. Gary Player is not like other legends. While most retired champions fade into safe commentary, Player remains the enforcer of a code most modern pros do not know exists. He built his career on brutal fitness routines, 1,000 push-ups a day, obsessive swing study, and refusal to compromise. At 86, he still has club head speed that embarrasses men half his age. He does not drink or smoke. That iron discipline is exactly why his criticism lands so hard. When Player calls something disgusting, he is pointing at behavior that violates everything a champion should be. The 6 players he called out represent every type of failure he despises. Some ignored swing fundamentals, some destroyed their bodies, some broke unwritten rules. And one recent case hit so close to tragedy that even Player struggled to balance sympathy with judgment. These are not random complaints, they are a pattern. Player sees modern golf trading knowledge for technology, discipline for convenience, and integrity for money. The 6 names are his proof. Number 6. Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson was supposed to be untouchable. For decades, he was the smiling face of professional golf, the fan favorite who could charm crowds and hit impossible wedge shots. Gary Player called him the epitome of perfection, the greatest PR man the tour ever had. But then came Saudi Arabia and the LIV golf split, and Player watched the entire sport turn on Mickelson. Player called the treatment pitiful, a crucifixion. He argued that Phil made a mistake and said terrible things, but the public reaction was not right. The disgusting habit reveals itself. It is not just Phil's mistake, it is the habit of a sport that no longer protects its icons. Player sees this as moral collapse. In his era, champions were given the benefit of the doubt. Legacies mattered. But modern golf operates like a courtroom where one wrong statement ends careers. Phil admitted he was reckless and acknowledged the damage, but instead of forgiveness, he got exile. Player finds that shift disgusting because it shows a sport that has lost its soul. The habit is the collective abandonment of grace. But there is a second layer. Player points to the equipment crutch defining Phil's era. Mickelson helped design the Mac Daddy high toe wedge, engineered to make delicate shots from greenside rough almost foolproof. The high toe prevents the club from sliding under the ball. It makes hard shots easy. Player, who watched Seve Ballesteros pull off miracles with inferior equipment, sees this as a disgusting shortcut, knowledge used to answer tough lies. Now geometry and perimeter weighting do the work. Phil became a master of feel, but Player argues modern forgiveness has watered down what feel even means. The habit of relying on technology to mask technical limits is everywhere, and Mickelson represents that drift. Phil's story is a double tragedy in Player's eyes. He made a mistake and got destroyed for it, showing a sport with no mercy. And he thrived in an era where equipment made the game easier than it should be. Player does not hate Phil. He pities what happened, but he sees Phil's career as proof that modern golf has drifted from the perfection it claims to worship. Number 5. Tom Watson. Gary Player and Tom Watson were supposed to be friends, part of the Big Four that defined an era. But in 1983, during the Skins game at Desert Highlands, Watson did something Player will never forget. On the 16th hole, with $120,000 on the line, Watson accused Player of cheating. The moment was brutal. Player had moved what he believed was a loose leaf from behind his ball. Watson saw it differently. He claimed the leaf was rooted, making removing it a rules violation. Watson did not whisper this to an official. He confronted Player directly in front of cameras. "I am accusing you, Gary. You cannot do that. I am tired of this." That last phrase is the dagger. Tired of this implies a pattern, a history Watson had been holding back. Player was staggered. He defended himself, insisting he was within the rules and tied the hole. He went on to win $150,000 on the next hole, but the damage was done. Watson never retracted. The habit is not about whether player actually broke the rule. It is about the disgusting act of public accusation in a sport built on trust. Golf is supposed to be self-policing. The honor system is sacred. But when Watson accused player on television, he turned the gentleman's game into courtroom drama. Player called it the most heinous thing you can say to a champion, and he fired back, claiming Watson had won majors using wedges with illegally grooved clubs. Whether true or defensive, it shows how ethical scrutiny turns into a weapon. This incident fractured their relationship permanently, but it reveals a disgusting undercurrent in elite golf. When money gets big enough, even legends question each other's integrity. The skins game was supposed to be entertainment. Instead, it became a symbol of how financial stakes corrupt the trust that makes golf work. Player sees Watson's confrontation as betrayal not just of him, but of the code that kept the sport clean. That habit, the willingness to publicly destroy a peer's reputation over a leaf, is something Player finds absolutely filthy. Number 4. Seve Ballesteros, the genius who knew nothing. This one is complicated. Gary Player loved Seve Ballesteros. He called him a great ambassador for the game. He said they were like brothers. Seve had the greatest feel of any man who ever lived, according to Player. From 50 yards in, Ballesteros could do things with a wedge that looked like magic. But then Player drops the line that stuns everyone. He said Seve knew the least about the golf swing of any champion he ever met. Player recalls playing with a young Ballesteros at Troon and thinking, technically, this guy is not even a 10 handicap. Seve was all over the place off the tee. His ball striking was erratic. His long game was a disaster by classical standards. But he survived through feel and recovery. He would miss fairways by miles, then pull off impossible up and downs that saved par. Crowds loved it. Seve became a legend, but Player sees that as a disgusting habit in disguise. The habit is relying on instinct to mask a lack of knowledge. Player believes that without technical understanding, a golfer is very limited. Feel can carry you for a while, especially when you are young and your touch is sharp. But as the body ages and feel fades, knowledge is the only thing that keeps you at the top. Seve did not have that foundation. He played by instinct, and when his feel started to slip, his game collapsed faster than it should have. Player is not trying to tear down Seve's legacy. He is pointing out a flaw in how the sport celebrates brilliance without demanding understanding. Modern fans watch highlight reels of Seve's creativity and think that is the pinnacle of golf, but Player argues that creative recovery is just a band-aid for poor fundamentals. The truly great players, in his view, are the ones who combine feel with knowledge. Hogan had both, Nicklaus had both, Seve only had one, and it limited how long he could dominate. The disgusting part is that the sport let him get away with it. Coaches and commentators praised his genius without ever addressing the technical ignorance underneath. And now, Player sees modern pros making the same mistake. They rely on feel and technology instead of building a swing based on sound principles. Seve was a warning that nobody heeded, and the habit of celebrating instinct over knowledge is now embedded in the game. Number 3, Jordan Spieth, the tragedy of the bowed wrist. Gary Player does not use the word tragedy lightly, but when he talks about Jordan Spieth, that is exactly what he calls it. Spieth is a 3-time major champion. He has one of the best short games in history. His course management is flawless. But Player says Spieth cannot hit the ball, and the reason is simple. He was taught the wrong thing. The specific technical habit that Player despises is the bowed wrist at the top of the backswing. Spieth's coach, Cameron McCormick, gets blamed directly. Player argues that this position is a terminal error. Once a golfer gets into that bowed wrist habit, they lose the ability to consistently control the club face. The result is exactly what we have seen with Spieth. After winning the Masters and the Open Championship and nearly completing the Grand Slam, Spieth's ball striking went downhill. He started missing cuts. His confidence crumbled, and Player says it is not bad luck or mental struggles. It is mechanics. The disgusting habit here is not just Spieth's swing, it is the failure of modern coaching. Player claims that American pros, despite having access to launch monitors and data and video analysis, actually know less about the golf swing than previous generations. They chase trends instead of timeless principles. They rely on technology to diagnose problems instead of understanding the fundamental geometry of impact. Player believes that if someone like Ben Hogan had coached Spieth, he would be the best player in the world right now. Instead, Spieth was handed a flawed method, and now his career is stuck in a downward spiral that might never reverse. What makes this truly tragic is that Spieth had everything else. He had the mind, he had the short game, he had the competitive fire. But because he was taught a disgusting technical habit early on, all that talent is being wasted. Player sees this as a failure of the entire infrastructure of modern golf. Coaches are supposed to protect young players from bad habits. Instead, they are installing them. And the sport just accepts it because Spieth still wins occasionally and still draws crowds. But player knows that greatness is not about occasional wins. It is about sustained excellence built on a foundation of knowledge. Spieth does not have that foundation, and unless he tears down his swing and rebuilds it, he never will. That is the tragedy. And it is disgusting that nobody in Spieth's camp seems willing to admit it. Number 2, John Daly. If Gary Player represents discipline, John Daly represents chaos. And Player finds that chaos absolutely disgusting. Daly smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. He used to drink 35 to 40 beers daily. He makes 3 or 4 trips to McDonald's every day. He famously never drinks water. His body is a wreck, and Player uses him as the ultimate example of what a professional golfer should never be. Player has a blunt philosophy. He says obesity is the biggest crime that exists with our health. Once you start getting fat, you are going to end on the mat. That is not metaphor. Player believes physical neglect is self-destruction, and Daly embodies that neglect. The disgusting habit is not just Daly's personal choices, it is what those choices represent. Daly had immense natural talent. His swing was pure. His power was legendary. He won majors. But instead of building on that foundation with discipline, he treated his body like a garbage dump. He partied. He gambled. He lived like a rock star. And the sport celebrated him for it. Fans loved the rebellious image. Daly became a cult hero, but Player sees that as filthy. He sees Daly as a terrible influence on young golfers who might think you can succeed without discipline. The habit of celebrating the anti-athlete is disgusting because it sends the wrong message. Golf requires focus and conditioning and sacrifice. Daly proved you can get by on talent for a while, but his career collapsed because his body could not keep up. Player, who still does 1,000 push-ups a day at 88, looks at Daly and sees wasted potential. He sees a guy who could have been an all-time great if he had just taken care of himself. Instead, Daly became a cautionary tale. And the truly disgusting part is that the sport enabled him. Nobody in Daly's circle had the courage to tell him to stop. The habit of looking the other way while a champion destroys himself is something Player finds unforgivable. Daly is not just a personal failure, he is a systemic failure. Number 1, Tiger Woods. This is the most recent and most painful of Player's criticisms. In April 2026, during the Masters, Gary Player made a comment about Tiger Woods that shocked people. He said, "Tiger is in pain. I do not blame him for taking medicine, but I do not think he should drive a car." The context is Tiger's long history of back injuries and his reliance on prescription pain medication. Player was not attacking Tiger for needing the drugs. He understands the agony Tiger has endured. But what Player finds disgusting is the habit of operating a vehicle while on medication, like hydrocodone. He compared it to looking at a cell phone while driving. Both are dangerous. Both show impaired judgment, and both put other people at risk. This is where the negative angle gets uncomfortable. Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer of his generation. He changed the sport. He brought athleticism and intensity that nobody had seen before. Player respects all of that, but he also sees a man whose life has spiraled into a series of setbacks and tragedies. The DUI arrest, the injuries, the scandals. And now, the admission that he is playing golf while managing chronic pain with serious medication. Player's heart goes out to Tiger for the physical suffering, but his judgment is firm. If you are on drugs that impair your ability to think clearly, you should not be behind the wheel. That is not a moral failing, it is a safety issue. And Player, who prides himself on control and discipline, sees this as a disgusting lapse in responsibility. The habit here is self-medication to the point where it affects judgment. Tiger wants to keep playing. He wants to compete. But Player wonders if that ambition is worth the risk. What if Tiger driving on pain meds causes an accident? What if someone gets hurt? Player has a chauffeur. He does not take those risks. And he thinks Tiger, as one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet, should have the same standard. This is the ultimate example of how even the greatest champions can develop disgusting habits. Tiger's desire to keep going to push through pain is admirable in some ways. But when it crosses into dangerous behavior, Player says it has to stop. And the fact that nobody around Tiger seems willing to tell him that is just as disgusting as the habit itself. This is not about tearing Tiger down. It is about recognizing that legends are not immune to making terrible choices. And those choices, when left unchecked, become habits that define their final chapters. So what do these 6 stories tell us? Gary Player is not just complaining about individual players. He is diagnosing a sport in decline. Phil Mickelson shows a culture that no longer forgives. Tom Watson shows how money corrupts trust. Seve Ballesteros shows the danger of celebrating feel over knowledge. Jordan Spieth shows how bad coaching destroys careers. John Daly shows how the sport enables self-destruction. And Tiger Woods shows how even greatness can slide into dangerous habits when discipline fades. Player sees all of this as disgusting because it represents departure from the standards that made golf great. The sport used to demand perfection. It used to require knowledge, fitness, integrity, and respect. Now it rewards technology, forgives recklessness, and celebrates mediocrity as long as it is entertaining. But Player has not given up. He still believes golf can return to those standards. He still thinks fans can demand better from their heroes. He still thinks players can choose discipline over convenience. The 6 names he called out are warnings, not obituaries. They show what happens when you ignore fundamentals, but they also show that it is not too late to change. If you want to see more breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment, letting us know which player criticism surprised you the most. This is a conversation the sport needs to have.